Hello and welcome back to Bookish and welcome to Tag Tuesday. Today I'm doing the Shakespeare Tag. I was tagged by Katie from Books and Things, and what an honor that was, and I'm happy to do this tag even though I feel somewhat inadequate in doing the Shakespeare Tag. So I'm going to run through the prompts here really quickly. I have them on my phone and also have them written down just in case I can't read my handwriting, which is likely. So prompt number one is, what was your first exposure to Shakespeare? My first exposure to Shakespeare was Gilligan's Island. I don't know how many of you remember the old Gilligan's Island show, but 7 castaways stranded on a desert island, one smart guy, a professor, a movie star, a rich couple, a goofus, skinny goofus, a heavier goofus, and then Marianne also. All on this island together, having to figure out ways to survive. And as the show went on for 6 or 7 seasons, there are only so many ways you can have those 7 characters interact. So they started bringing in, I think, like guest stars and having people just show up on the island randomly, and then figuring out creative ways to get them off while stranding everybody else. And in one of those episodes, the cast of or the people on Gilligan's Island end up performing Hamlet, and they did it as a musical, and I still remember some of the goofy songs. I'm not going to sing them, but that was my first real exposure to Shakespeare, was from Gilligan's Island. How embarrassing is that? Prompt number 2, what Shakespearean plays have you seen? So I made a list. I'm going to go through these real quick. Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Hamlet, The Tempest, Henry IV, Part 1 and 2, Henry V, Merry Wives of Windsor, Measure for Measure. I believe those are the ones that I have read, and I've read some of the sonnets. Sonnet 29 being the sonnet performed at my wedding, which is my favorite. Prompt number 3, which Shakespeare plays have you seen on stage or film? Well, I think I've only seen one Shakespeare play on stage, and that was in college. And I believe my college theater company performed Love's Labour's Lost, which I think it's the only one I've seen on stage. But movie-wise, or on television, I recently saw the British Theatre Company, I believe's production of Twelfth Night, which I enjoyed quite a bit. I watched that online. I've seen Kenneth Branagh's Much Ado About Nothing and his Henry V, which is my favorite. I've seen the Mel Gibson version of Hamlet, which has an incredible supporting staff, and I've seen the Franco Zeffirelli Romeo and Juliet, and what's the more recent guy? Well, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio in it. I've seen that one too. Oh, prompt number 4: do you have a favorite complete works of Shakespeare? I don't own a book version of the complete works of Shakespeare, so I'm going to go with the Folger Shakespeare Library, which is an online resource, which is where I read most of my Shakespeare plays for ShakeTube. It has the sonnets, the plays, etc. And so since that's the one I use, I think it's just called Folger Shakespeare Library now. I can't remember. Since that's the one I use, that's what I'm going to say is my favorite. Prompt number 5, what is your favorite comedy? Well, this is kind of difficult for me. My favorite overall Shakespeare play is The Tempest, and it is classified as a comedy, so I'm going to say The Tempest, because I just like that story of, and probably because I'm a dad, of a father trying to overprotect his daughter. That story of kind of family hostilities being healed, the release of enslaved spirits. I just really like that. I think I was introduced to that play by the movie which came out in the 80s called Prospero's Books, which is somewhat based on The Tempest. But I also really like the Twelfth Night now, since I saw that production. It is the way it was performed made it really funny, so I would list that also there as one of my favorite comedies. Prompt number 6, what is your favorite history play? That's Henry V. I've only read 3, the 2 Henry IVs and the Henry V. And even though the Henry IVs have Falstaff, who is just my favorite Shakespeare character so far, and I realize that that's a very well, that Falstaff is not a particularly admirable person. There's something, you know, that I love about him, probably the same as Prince Hal loved about him back in the day. But Henry V is my favorite, in part because it just has all those wonderful speeches, you know. There are just so many speeches in it that are great and moving and powerful. And I love the function of the chorus in Henry V, kind of summing up history and moving you from one scene to another. I love that, the presence of the chorus in Henry V as well, and I think a lot of the best writing in the play is given to the chorus. Then prompt 7, what is your favorite Shakespeare tragedy? I'm going to go with Macbeth because Macbeth is set in Scotland, and Macbeth, I think, is probably the first Shakespeare play that I read in school. Seems like that was our 8th grade play. And maybe we read Romeo and Juliet in the 9th grade. I can never remember. But Macbeth would be my favorite. You know, Lady Macbeth and the whole, you know, twist at the end just really probably appealed to, you know, the young teenage me back in the day. Then prompt 8 is, what is your least favorite Shakespeare play? And I assume this is of the ones that you've read, and that would be Measure for Measure. I think there's some good lines in Measure for Measure, but the play has an air of cruelty to it. Proposed cruelty to characters being executed, the way in which some characters are used to entrap others, and then, you know, the way in which the main female character is kind of prized for her virtue, and it just, there's a lot about it that just felt kind of, well, cruel, misogynist in its attitude towards women, and so that would be the least favorite play that I've read. Prompt number 9 is, what Shakespeare play would you like to direct? And I said The Merry Wives of Windsor. Again, I can only really choose from the plays that I've read or the plays that I've seen, and that one just seems like it would be fun. To be honest with you, it seems like a lot of the stage directions, a lot of the staging is already there. A lot of the comedy, a lot of the jokes are fairly broad. Some of them have to do with physical humor, and I just, again, it has Falstaff, and you know, who wouldn't like to have a chance to direct someone as Falstaff? Well, at least I would. So that would be my answer there. And then 10, which lesser known play are you most excited to read, or do you think deserves more attention? Well, I don't have a lot of familiarity with lesser known Shakespeare plays, so I just went with one that I'd like to read and somewhat excited to read and probably get to sometime this year. And that's The Winter's Tale, or Winter's Tale. That's the one I'm most excited to read because I know very little about it. And I know that Winter's Tale is performed from time to time, but I would still say that it is one of the kind of lesser known Shakespeare plays. Okay, well, there you go. Thanks for that tag, Katie. Anyway, there you go. That's my Tag Tuesday. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching.